Hello, everybody. Brian here. Today is the 24th of February, 6:37 p.m. my time. I want to talk about this article I've seen on Forbes, which is parts of it are just absolutely insane. Uh, if you like what you're about to hear, go to quantlabs.net/contact. It can help you out to preserve your wealth, grow your wealth in these uncertain times. Anyways, let's get to this article here. So there's this article here on Forbes, 5 ways to protect your wealth from inflation. Some of it's I can relate with. Some of it I just find is absolutely insane, unless you're super well off. Um, First one, buy physical precious metals. I just put up videos to explain that we're going to have very volatile gold prices. Silver's dropped. So I don't know, having that kind of volatility in your portfolio is wise. You want low volatility, uncorrelated assets to grow in a stable way. Since the period of easy money is done with now, that the Federal Reserve, is going to start to raise interest rates to fight uh, inflation and other economic things I can tell you. Anyways, let's look at this next one. Property, I tend to agree with. Obviously, if you live in a home that you can afford, do it. For example, I'm in Toronto, one of the biggest, um, call it bubbles in the world, real estate bubbles in the world, but my real estate's gone up by at least 3 times over the last 10 years. So it's the greatest hedge to have without doing anything other than paying for the property and the property taxes. But property is definitely, now if you're going to get into the game of rental income and you're totally levered up, obviously it's not wise with the interest rates spiking. You're going to be overextended and you're going to be in a very bad financial position in coming months, and especially if you're in rental income. Look at what's happened with the pandemic, where you cannot boot people out when this pandemic hit, and more governments becoming more socialist, uh, more centrally owned. And you got to be part of the think tank. So there's going to be more of that as well. Another big people don't realize is places like Germany, especially in Berlin. If you own large apartment flats, the independent landowners are getting booted out as the city takes over these apartments. That's the way they want it. So that's the way it looks. Now in the States it might be different, but economically I think it's, if you asked me 10 years ago, yes, I would agree with it, but moving forward, no. For the reasons as I said. Borrow as much money as you can, make sure it's fixed rate. Let me explain this right here. I agree with kind of this. Simply do not let your cash sit around, because if you're holding on to cash right now, 1,000, 100 million, 200, whatever millions of dollars, a British pound, US dollar, it's losing value as we speak. All crypto's going down. I just put up an article on the Japanese yen, which is fairly stable. There's some other Western currencies that are stable, but overall, most currencies are dropping in value. So if you're going to hold that cash in that currency, it's dropping on a world level, on an international level. Like, you're losing value in that, so you do not want to hold cash. So I can agree with that. Now, in terms of borrow as much money as you can, but make sure it's a fixed rate. I think that is the absolute most insane thing I've heard. That's Kiyosaki talking. Here's a guy who's worth $200 million. His true net worth is not $200 million when you factor in his liabilities, which meaning loans to big banks to subsidize his loans for these large blocks of apartments that he has that he clearly cannot afford. He doesn't have the cash position to pay them off if they all get called in, which I think they will if things continue the way they are in coming months. So you don't want to have debt at all, okay? You want to have cash. When I first started this business at Quant Labs, I talked to a former Canadian who was down in Dallas, Texas, and became one of the largest independent property developers in Dallas, Texas. He told me that he was pretty well overextended on his developments in Texas, And when things got kind of scary for him in Texas, when the financial crisis came in, especially on real estate, banks were calling in their loans to people that had mortgages, and he almost lost his business. Could have gone bankrupt, and he told me point blank he only wants to be in assets where they're self-generating revenue. So you don't want to have to take on debt to overextend yourself on loans. One of the biggest lessons I learned from this guy, he was extremely wealthy, and he was just using things like other businesses to supplement his rental income because he could afford to do it without having to go to the bank to take out loans and high debt. I mean, Kiyosaki's recommendations are, in my mind, just financial suicide, especially now and interest rates are going to go up. Absolutely the worst type of advice. Again, if you like these kind of tips, go over to quantlabs.net/contact, because I help people try to preserve their wealth, to actually grow it in ways they're not mandated, where they're restricted, and namely in crypto as well, because that's easily the number one wealth generator out there, as we know, despite what you hear with crypto not doing too good. But my bots are doing pretty good. We can set you up with something if you want to talk about it as well. But just get in touch, get on the email list, and reach out to me as well. And you can get on my Telegram contact list as well if you want, if you're really serious about this. Other than that, thanks for listening and watching, and we shall talk to you later. Have a good day.